So Formula One, the Chinese Grand Prix sprint qualifying, as George Russell gets sprint pole position, and it was a business as usual, business as normal for Mercedes terms. A brilliant qualifying performance from them once again. Another 1-2 finish, and they looked very strong once again. Um, yeah, like I mean George Russell for the whole sprint qualifying, he was super dominant. All the time he was, first position. He was putting great laps after laps, and for him to not only like him to get pole, also all the times he was, purple sector one, purple sector two. He was absolutely fantastic. Really dominant performance, setting a great lap after great lap after great lap. And yes, it's not easy. And yes, people might say, oh, he has the fastest car, etc. But at the same time, in this kind of new regulations, in a different track to Australia to China, you have to adapt really well, and you have to, adapt really well to the new regulation cars, especially when you put in a qualifying lap, because obviously you have to take care of the penalty management, etc. And I think George Russell has done that a really good job in that, even though you might say he has the Mercedes was the fastest car in this race and in last weekend as well. So yeah, the Mercedes looked very strong once again. In practice, 1-2. In sprint qualifying, 1-2 once again. And Canettanelli, he was very strong as well. Second, he was once again behind Russell, 2 tenths, three tenths behind. So this is something maybe Kimi wants to, get closer to, if he wants to bridge that gap to George. But once again, another brilliant performance from Mercedes, another 1-2, and although even though they got 1-2, Antonelli might get penalised for the blocking he made on Lando Norris. So it could be a 3-place skip penalty. That means Mercedes start on first position and fifth. If it's not the penalty, then first and second. I think even if Antonelli gets a 5-place grid penalty, a 3-place grid penalty, he should still finish second in the sprint, because the pace that Mercedes have compared to others this weekend is a huge difference in terms of the gaps. And you look at the gaps as well in qualifying, it's a huge difference between Mercedes and the other teams as well. So yeah, brilliant performance once again for Mercedes, and I think if they continue in this trajectory and this way of performance as they did in free practice and in the sprint qualifying, then they should do really well in the sprint, and they should do well in the race on Sunday as well. So yeah. And you look at also the other teams, Ferrari. I felt like they should have done more in sprint qualifying. I think they should have at least. I think they had a chance to get P3, P4, be closer. And Antonelli, he was kind of let's say he didn't have the best lap in the second lap, Antonelli. Yeah, even though he proved he didn't have the second best lap, the second run in. Maybe Hamilton or Leclerc maybe could have jumped ahead of him to get P2 even. But I have to say, McLaren, Piastri was purple sector 1, and he's not far away from George. His sector. They're going to start on third position. Maybe should have been fourth if Piastri didn't make that mistake in this final sector, and maybe second and fourth. It depends on whether Antonelli gets that penalty or not. So yeah, it's not bad for McLaren side. Ferrari, I think they should have done better, in my opinion, with this sprint qualifying, because they have the potential to be for one of their drivers at least to be in the top 3. So For Red Bull, I mean, yeah, very, very struggling sprint qualifying for Red Bull. I mean, at one stage they were nearly out in sprint qualifying too. Finished eighth. So yeah, Red Bull in terms of pace, they look very, very far behind to Mercedes, to Ferrari, and you could also say McLaren as well. So yeah, they struggle, but obviously we're saying this in this moment in time doesn't mean that Red Bull cannot. And yeah, like Red Bull looked very far in terms of pace, but obviously it's a long season, and we saw last season where Red Bull was struggling in the first half of the season, but second half of the season they managed to come back and Verstappen nearly won the championship. So it's a long season, long way to go. Similar to McLaren as well, they've not had the stellar start in terms of pace, but it's a long season. So, but obviously the gap you look at from first position to 10th, it's I think it's by 2.7 seconds. It's too much. Even McLaren, where last season they were dominating, particularly in the first half of the season, the gap was like from first position to 10th was like 1 second, 0.8 seconds, not like this huge of a gap that Mercedes had to the other teams. So this is something that the other teams need to get on top of if they want to catch up to Mercedes and close that gap. But obviously this kind of thing is not going to happen very, very, very quickly. Because obviously you need to bring in upgrades, and when you need to bring upgrades, you need to understand upgrades really well and then maximize fully of it. So yeah, let's see what happens. But like I said, Mercedes look very, very strong. I have to say Audi look quite decent. Haas Behrman, I think, had a good performance. Gasly had a good performance as well. Williams very, very disappointing. Very, very, very disappointing. I know that they didn't have the best start of the season, obviously with they didn't have the start pre-season, I should say, where they missed Barcelona. They had problems in their car, failing the crash test 3 times, being overweight, etc. But for you to be that far behind is and to be out, both your cars to be out in Q1 is very, very disappointing. Aston Martin were expectedly out in Q1 considering the problems they have, so as Cadillac. So yeah, that's it for the sprint qualifying. On forward to the sprint and the race, qualifying the race. I think a sprint. I think Mercedes should get a 1-2, even if Antonelli gets a penalty. The Mercedes, if they show the pace they did in the whole weekend so far, it's 3 practice 1 and in qualifying they should get 1-2. In third position, I think it could be anybody's game. I mean, Lando did a very good job to get P3 and maybe P2. Who knows? But I think P3 could be anybody's game. It could be Lando, it could be Lewis. Lewis is usually strong in China. It could be Oscar as well, where he did really well last year in China. So yeah, I don't think Red Bull will get P3, P4 or Max because the pace they have. Not only do they have a huge gap to Mercedes, they are slower than McLaren and Ferrari. So and that's for the sprint. And for the qualifying, I think obviously Mercedes, if they show the pace they have had, they should get pole position, and that should be Russell. I mean, and if not, then it could be Kimi Antonelli, who's also been performing quite well this weekend, even though he's still behind his teammate. And in the race, I also expect Mercedes to be very, very strong as well. I know what I'm saying, it sounds a bit boring because you're like, oh, Mercedes is going to dominate, but this is the way it's going right now. It doesn't mean that it's going to stay like this for the whole season. Yeah, Mercedes might do well might be doing well right now, but it doesn't mean that they're going to continue like that for the rest of the season, because we could see other teams catching up and Mercedes might drop off. So who knows? But at this moment in time, yeah, Mercedes look very strong, and I think they should win the sprint. They should win the race if they obviously show the pace they've had this season, this weekend so far, and also in Australia. So yeah, and as for I think it could be like P3, P4. I think you look at the likes of McLaren. I think the McLaren in terms of pace they've improved this weekend compared to last week. So maybe they have a better chance to get P3 or P4 or P2 if they can't get a race win. Whereas Ferrari, similar thing as well last season. I mean last week in qualifying they were not that good in qualifying, but in the race they've got very good race pace. So maybe in qualifying, yeah, they might not be that great, but if they can get off the line a great start as they did last weekend in Australia and show great pace in the car in the race, then maybe they could fight Mercedes. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you. I wish you have a nice day. See you next time, and goodbye.